In China, electrical fire takes a large proportion in the total fire incidents. Wires and cables are the only carrier for power transmission, and their properties directly influence the electrical security. So what are the qualifications for a safe cable? No matter cable is insulated, heat-resistant, freeze-proof, flame-retardant, fire-resistant, low smoke, or non-toxic, it shall always meet the standard requirements of its operating environment. Then it can be called as a safe cable. Genuine takes responsibilities with courage and promises customers of all-round inspection. We have always been adhering to the tenet of quality is life and guarantee that all properties of our cable products meet or even exceed the national standards. For a long time, Genuine Inspection Center has been shouldering the responsibility of controlling cable quality in a strict so as to ensure the security of cables used by customers. From material selection to product manufacturing, we conduct serious inspection throughout the whole process. All inspection data of our products are in strict accordance with national standards. We will never allow any defect, not even the slightest. For this reason, we rigorously control the quality of raw materials to ensure the material indexes to meet standard requirements, including using environmental testing instrument for the inspection of environmental friendly performance of raw materials. We always believe that only qualified raw materials can result in qualified cables. Thus, we conduct all-round inspection for each cable to check its properties and undertake detection tasks to realize our commitment of all-round inspection by using the inspection equipment at the 8 major function rooms of Inspection Center. The sampling room is equipped with wire and cable chipper, crosslink cable slicer, grinding wheel lapping machine, and dumbbell punching machine. The sampling room is mainly used for dissection and decomposition of wire and cable, and the preparation of test samples required for relevant tests. The constant temperature and humidity laboratory is mainly used for testing of items with strict requirements for ambient temperature and humidity, such as measuring conductor resistance. It can detect the DC resistance or resistivity of conductor of wires and cables at certain temperature and humidity, measuring thickness and boundary dimension, checking the thickness and boundary dimension of the insulation and sheath of wires and cables by projective magnification. The insulation resistance room is mainly used for testing the insulation resistance of wires and cables at ambient temperature or operating temperature to judge the reliability and performance of insulation. The mechanical property room is mainly used for tensile test, namely detecting the tensile strength and elongation at the break of the conductor of wires and cables or the insulated sheathing material. Winding torsion test can test the toughness of metallic conductor of wires and cables, such as copper wire, aluminum wire, and steel wire, namely testing whether there will be fracture or cracking after winding and torsion. The thermal property room is mainly used for testing the mechanical and physical properties of insulation and sheathing material of wires and cables. Insulation and sheathing material of wire and cables after a period of time at high temperature, such as thermal aging test. It can test the property retention performance of insulation and sheathing material of wires and cables after a period of time at high temperature. High temperature pressure test can test the deformation of the insulation and sheathing material of wires and cables under pressure at high temperature. Anti-crack test can test the anti-crack performance of the insulation and sheaths of wires and cables at high temperature. Thermal elongation test can test the elongation and performance deformation of the insulation and sheath of wires and cables at high temperature and under load. Thermal weight loss test can test the material degradation and volatilization degree of the insulation and sheaths of wires and cables after a period of time of high temperature aging. The low temperature performance room is mainly used for testing the mechanical and physical properties of the insulation and sheaths of wires and cables at low temperature, such as low temperature winding test. It can test whether the insulation and sheaths of wires and cable crack and break at low temperature. Low temperature tensile test can test the tensile elongation at break of the insulation and sheaths of wires and cables at low temperature. Low temperature impact test can test the external shock withstand of wires and cables at low temperature. The winding room is mainly used for testing the dynamic winding of flexible cable under load, whether breakage or short circuit occurs to the flexible cable after a period of times of winding, and other bad situations that affect security and usage. The combustion performance room is mainly used for testing relevant flame retardance and fire resistance of wires and cables under fire conditions, such as oxygen index test. It can test the required oxygen concentration of the insulation and sheathing materials of wires and cables during combustion to adjust the flame retardance of materials. Vertical burn test can test the non-fire spread performance of wires and cables under stipulated fire conditions. Fire resistance test can test the capability of maintaining the integrity and current continuity of fire-resistant wires and cables at stipulated fire conditions. I'd like to say finally, but there is no finally but the constant pursuit for better, safer, and greener cables to the all-round inspection of genuine, because we know that cables are tightly connected to the security of life and property. We have invested a lot into the rigorous inspection because we believe that life is priceless. Carrying light and transmitting power. JENUINcable.